When you think about the war that kicked off in 2026, you probably picture missiles, jets, maybe troops on the ground. But what if I told you there's another war going on, a quieter one, not between countries, but against the entire planet? Okay, let's get into this toxic reckoning.
120. What is that? Well, that's the number of times the environment was seriously damaged in just the first 3 days of the conflict. A pretty staggering figure, and honestly, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
And that's the grim reality here, isn't it? The immediate fighting is horrific, for sure, but the environmental fallout, that creates a legacy of poison that's going to be felt for decades, long, long after the last bomb falls.
To really get a grip on the human cost of all this, let's zoom right in on a single city, where a really bad situation has been pushed completely over the edge.
You have to understand, Tehran wasn't starting with a clean slate here. It was already one of the most polluted cities in the world, causing thousands of deaths every single year. So this war didn't start the fire, it just poured a tanker of gasoline on it. Now the sky over the city is just filled with this black smoke, this nasty cocktail of chemicals from all the explosions and fires. For millions of people, especially the elderly and the sick, every single breath is a risk. What was a chronic problem has become an acute, full-blown catastrophe.
So where is all this pollution actually coming from? It's easy to just think, oh, it's smoke from fires. But the reality is, it's a far more complex and, frankly, a far more dangerous chemical soup.
And this is really the core question, right? Because the answer tells you exactly why the damage is so severe and so widespread.
The list of sources is just, it's a nightmare. You've got the obvious stuff, oil refineries, fuel depots, even the world's largest gas field, South Pars, going up in flames. Then you have the emissions from the war machines themselves, the jets, the missiles, even protected forests are burning. And then you get to the really nasty stuff, munitions, releasing what are called forever chemicals, or PFAS. As the name suggests, they don't break down, and they can poison soil and water for generations.
Just to give you a sense of scale, the first few strikes on oil and gas sites ignited almost 20 million liters of fuel. That is a colossal amount, sending this giant toxic plume of soot and poison drifting across the entire region.
And this stuff doesn't just stay in the air. It settles. It seeps into the groundwater. It poisons the soil. This messes with agriculture, it contaminates drinking water, and it creates these huge long-term health risks for anybody living nearby.
Okay, so let's zoom out from the regional disaster and look at the global picture, because this conflict has a truly massive carbon footprint, and it's basically putting climate change on steroids for all of us.
Here's something that might actually surprise you. Even in peacetime, militaries are a huge source of pollution. They account for about 5.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than the entire aviation and shipping industries combined. It's this massive figure that kind of flies under the radar. And of course, a war takes that huge baseline and just multiplies it like crazy.
To understand just how staggering this is, some projections suggest this conflict could release over 230 million tons of CO2. That is roughly the same as the entire yearly emissions of an industrialized country like France. Just think about that. One conflict wiping out the climate progress of millions.
So the crucial point here is this. You can't really separate modern warfare from climate change anymore. They are fundamentally linked. Every bomb that's dropped, every jet that's scrambled is another major blow to our global climate goals. But look, this isn't just about abstract carbon numbers or pollution happening somewhere else. The environmental fallout has direct, real-world economic consequences that are being felt everywhere, and very likely in your own wallet.
It all starts in a geographic choke point. The moment the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted, you suddenly see 20 to 30% of the world's oil and gas supply get choked off. That supply shock makes energy prices skyrocket, and that in turn drives up the cost of pretty much everything, from filling your car to buying groceries.
The connection to your daily life is incredibly direct. The disruption in the Gulf? That's why you're paying more at the pump. When countries panic and shift back to dirtier energy like coal, well, that's why your electricity bills are going up. And those massive CO2 emissions from the war, they contribute to the extreme weather that's getting more frequent and more expensive for everyone.
So as we look to the future, it's becoming pretty clear that the most enduring legacy of this war won't be redrawn borders or some political shift. It's going to be the toxic, permanent scar it's leaving on the environment. I mean, we are talking about damage that could take generations to heal, if it ever really does. We're facing decades of poisoned land, accelerated climate change, and billions upon billions of dollars in future costs for cleanup and for treating all the health problems.
And that leaves us with one final pretty sobering question. When nations go to war, fighting over land and influence, the planet itself becomes this silent casualty. And in that fight, who's left to speak for it?